Welcome to the Farm and Country podcast, airing the latest news, views and interviews from CMM Auctions. I'm Danielle from Craven Cattle Mart, and in today's episode, the burning topic of our times, carbon emissions. Where in the dales to chew the cud on cultivations and dig the dirt on soil. The COVID pandemic has changed everything, so what's been the impact if you're buying or selling land? And just what are those heaven-sent opportunities not to be missed? Busy spring lambing, kidding and calving might leave you staggering, but your livestock certainly shouldn't be. The vet is here with more help and advice to keep your flock fit and your herd healthy. We'll take you behind the scenes at the auction mart in Skipton and give you a glimpse of the big transformations taking place, and why we're face to face with farmers once more. There can be no life without soil and no soil without life, so the old saying goes. And it's true, the key to being a successful farmer is knowing what's under your feet. So how can you boost productivity and profits from your fresh green pastures? And if you're taking action to tackle CO2 emissions through carbon offsetting, do you know major changes are being planned? Jeremy Eaton has been finding out more from Updale livestock farmer Richard Paul of farming feed, seed and chemical supplier Agricultural Central Trading.
Yeah, Agricultural Central Trading started about 55 years ago as a farmer-owned company to try and buy inputs cheaper for the farmer. It's a farmer-owned company and I've been with them for 9 years, and I cover the area from Clitheroe all the way to Scarborough on the east coast. It's a bit of a large area. A lot of my work is not only dealing with arable farmers in the Vale of York and around Pickering, but also I'm dealing with a lot of grassland farmers. I'm dealing with beef and sheep farmers like myself in the hills, but also the more intensive dairy farmers who are looking to maximise all the grass and get 3 or 4 cuts of silage. And at this time of the year, I'm spending quite a bit of time soil sampling and walking on their grass fields and assessing the swards and looking at certain fields which need rejuvenating, I should say, or reseeding, and get some new young grasses in there for maximum productivity.
What's the trend in the dairy industry at the moment?
Well, I've been quite surprised really. For the last 30 years I've been soil sampling for all these grassland men, regular away, just looking at the normal pH and the phosphate and the potash levels and the magnesiums and the calcium levels, looking at the soil structures. And more lately, in the last month, I'm getting these guys ringing me up saying we need to do some soil tests, but we also need to be doing some carbon audits while we're doing that, and looking to see about the relationship of carbon in our soils, because the milk buyer is actually asking for them. And I think going forward, this is something that most farmers are going to come across as we go forward in the next few years.
Do we know what we're looking for at this moment, or is this all sort of new talk at the moment? It's
all new talk. Everybody's learning as we go on. I'm just a sheep farmer in the hills, which sort of seem to know the very basics, just like anybody else. One of the interesting things is, obviously, we all know that trees and any plant that's very woody is far better at holding on to carbon sequestration than a leafy plant. And in between a grass and a tree, for example, you've got a bush, which is something like heather on the moorlands, which is also a very stemmy, woody plant, so that is also good for carbon storage. But also, not just the plants holding carbon, our soils are also holding carbon. And I think as we go forward, there will be a lot of legislation coming through whereby all of us as farmers will have to be audited. And there will be a big difference between somebody like me in the hills with 6 sheep on 1,000 acres and walking around with a donkey, and my carbon audit will be very positive for the environment. And yet you've got a big dairy farmer milking 2,000 cows on 400 acres down country, and bringing lots of feed in with wagons on a daily basis and tractors and trailers. He will be very negative in his carbon audit. And I can see there will be a lot of trading within farmers of carbon credits. Just as there is now, we're all hearing about some of the landowners planting trees and selling the carbon credits to some of these big industries that need to actually carry on operating like the airlines and the big haulage companies. So there's big changes coming about.
What are we actually doing? Because obviously this has to be, the nutrients have to be available to plants, and in this area we're talking about the plant which is grass, aren't we really? So how does aeration benefit?
Well, we've got the biology of the soil, and we've also got the chemical activity in the soil. So the chemical side of it is all the nitrogen and the phosphate and potash that we apply in a bag. But more importantly is we've got the bacterial activity going on, which is all the good cellulosic bacteria. And what they do is that they break down the unavailable plant food, which we call organic matter, and they convert that into actual plant food, which would be nitrogen, phosphate and potash for the plants to eat and to grow. And in order for that process to happen, you need a lot of good cellulosic bacteria. So if you've got an acidic soil, you do not have a large quantity of bacteria. There could be as much as 1 tonne per acre of good cellulosic bacteria in a good biological 6.5 pH soil. Or you could have as little as 150 kilos per acre of bacteria in an acidic soil. And I'm very happy to come and talk to anybody and walk over their grass fields and advise them accordingly. Going forward, I think it's very, very important that we do look at these things in more detail.
That's Richard Paul. If you've got any questions for him on these important topics, don't hesitate to give him a call on 07788 142 837. Time for a trip to the vets. Nematodirus is a particularly nasty disease in sheep, causing profuse diarrhoea and leading to stunted growth and a high number of sudden deaths. Spring is the time to keep an eye out for potentially fatal gastrointestinal diseases and staggers. So it's the right moment to get some advice from veterinary surgeon Mark Thompson.
Typically what you see, dirty bums, dehydrated lambs, looking weak, tight-skinned, ears down a little bit, just not thriving. Lambs between 6 and 12 weeks of age typically, you can see it outside of that area. Tends to be a disease of intensification, so where there is a lot of lambs together or on creep feed is where you tend to see a lot of coccidiosis. There's a couple of treatments for cocci, traditionally Vicoxin. If you have lambs that you're worried might have cocci or any other gut disease, you want to be getting a muck sample down to the vets, and we can be looking to see if there's any cocci eggs there. The added advantage is we can see if there's any worm eggs, although it's a little bit soon just at the moment. However, nematodirus is on the horizon and could be coming at any time soon.
So nematodirus, obviously it's a time critical thing with the ground warming up and the worms coming out. How can we find out when the first case is?
It's a matter of keeping sort of ear to the ground and seeing what's going on around you. There are various sources of information. There's various forecasts which will forecast what's happening in the area, which is based on meteorological data and also real data of nematodirus being found. We will be keeping our webpage updated with any cases in the area, and also I think the NARDIS website will also give information on cases of nematodirus. Currently what's happening in the veterinary practice at the moment, we are seeing quite a lot of sudden deaths in fit sheep, and we've also seen a few cases of actual staggers in cattle. The sudden deaths in fit ewes, after sampling them, we have alluded to the fact that they are probably staggers. So we are seeing quite a lot of staggers about at the moment. So be prepared for that. It's all down to magnesium. Magnesium either being locked up in the feed, so they're not being able to access it, which typically happens when grass is growing quickly in spring. If you do see any animals staggering, so thrashing about, looking like they've had a fit, they do need some magnesium to be given under the skin. And also, if you're able to, give some calcium and magnesium into the vein. Do phone up the vet as soon as you see one. They'll be able to administer it into the vein if you can't, and they'll be able to chat with you about long-term protection against staggers in the herd or flock.
Mark Thompson from Craven Farm Vets talking to Sam Bradley. You're listening to the Farming Country podcast. It's 100 years since farming was mechanised and the horse was replaced by horsepower. and what a long way we've come. Cars Billington is a well-respected company, supplying farmers across the UK for many years. Now, as part of a new and exciting move, they'll soon be offering farm machinery at local stores for the first time ever. Chris Tennant can tell us more.
I'm just down here at CCM Skipton Auction Market site, just at the loading docks, and I'm just looking across and I can see there's quite a bit going on at Cars Billington's site. Jim, what's happening to your feed store?
What we're trying to do is bring the shop a new retail offering for Cars Billington and all the customers here at CCM, get it all into one side, and the addition of machinery onto the site, which Tom Jobling might just tell us a bit more about now.
Yes, we're looking to bring machinery into the Skipton depot too. Machinery makes a big part of the Cars Billington business across 6 or 7 sites already in the north of England, and we've seen an opportunity at Skipton to support the customers with some key brands, and we're looking to come here with Crone, who are synonymous with the hay and forage machinery, with Vitamin for some wheeled loaders and telehandlers, and with the Still product, among many more. So it's very exciting times ahead.
I can also see, Tom, just looking over at the other side, there's quite a bit of machinery over there. Can we go and have a look at some of that?
Yeah, and get out the noise. They're doing a bit over here.
Yes, yeah.
Don't mess about, do they?
No, there's certainly a bit going on. It's quite tight time scales, trying to get everything done. We've scheduled opening for the 1st of June if all goes to plan.
Yeah, and hopefully the retail side, Monday the 10th of May, hopefully will be across in the new store, conjoined with the warehouse, which will make it a lot better for the customers, everything in one side. Then that makes way for the machinery to be able to start doing their alterations in the shed.
Now then, Tom, what brands and machinery and things are you going to be doing down here?
So the lead brand is going to be Crone range of machinery. So Cars have dealt with the Crone brand for at least 25 years now as a company. So we're bringing the full range of product here, from foragers right down to your standard mowers. And then the trailer you can see is actually a Brogan trailer. So that's another brand that Cars are strong with, among many other brands that we offer as a company elsewhere.
Jim was telling us that they're relocating the retail side over into the building what's feed store. What's going to happen in this unit over here then, what is now the animal health retail?
The existing store is going to be transformed into a machinery workshop at the rear, and then the front's going to be a machinery only parts store for all makes of machinery, and along with all the other accessories too. And we'll have a salesman based out of here along with parts, and 2 technicians initially, but we're looking to grow that team as we need to. Very excited about working more in this area.
Okay, that's good to hear. And can I ask you a question, Jim? The machinery are taking a bit of your yard space. Are you going to be able to cope with you getting a bit more yard space as well?
Yeah, it's an ongoing project. Hopefully we can keep just grabbing a little bit more, but I think with the levelling up that's going on the site, there are opportunities for additional storage all around. And like I said before, with it all being on one side, I think they complement each other really. We should see increased footfall and vice versa, so I think it's a win-win for us and for the customers coming to CCM.
Well, sounds very exciting.
Super, yeah. Keep an eye out, everybody, and come down and say hello over the coming weeks as things change, and we look forward to providing the same great service that we always have done.
North Yorkshire sales rep Chris Tennant there, with Skipton's retail store manager Jim Hennessy and machinery after sales manager Tom Jobling. In a moment, why it's all systems go for market day at Skipton. But first, have you thought seriously about making more money from your land? With sky-high values and serious investors ready and waiting, now could be the time to release marginal land not key to agriculture and rougher hill land to enviroforestry. With that and a timely reminder about the basic payment scheme, here are John Akrigg and Megan Schofield from WBW Surveyors.
We have observed that the coronavirus pandemic has not only affected rural property, but is also having a marked impression on the land sales.
We've sold this summer a number of blocks of amenity land, and the prices we've achieved have far exceeded what we would normally have expected. I can only explain this because people are wanting that outside recreation, because they're not able to go away with their families. They're just wanting to spend time at home, and we've sold a block of land just with the river running through it where the family wanted to go and picnic. We've sold land for camping where the family just want to go spend time outdoors, and it's poor agricultural land, but it's made an exceptional price just because of its amenity interest. So if anybody has blocks of marginal land that are not key to their agricultural operations but have some interest to them and they're looking to release capital to do other things on the farm, then the time has never been better than now to release those blocks of land onto the market, because they will make far more than their agricultural value and far more than we've ever seen them make previously, just because of the climate we're in and the desperation for people to have space outdoors to go and enjoy. So yeah, it's really unprecedented times in the market.
And we've also observed that changing subsidy regimes and increased emphasis on the government's target for net zero is starting to filter through into the land market.
Well, again, this is another really interesting area. I mean, we've sold a few large blocks of roughish hill land to go into what's called enviroforestry, and this is basically tree planting but with a objective of carbon sequestration. And these aren't sales to private individuals, these are sales to large accumulated funds of capital where they are spending other people's money to basically offset carbon emissions in other areas of industry. And what's been very surprising to me is that the money is definitely there and accumulated in these funds, and the fund managers are desperate to get the money invested, and they've got acquisition targets to hit. And I've been very pleasantly surprised that the prices we've achieved have exceeded the normal agricultural value of that type of rough hill land. With a change in subsidy regime, I think, if basic payment goes and people are starting to look at other options, then definitely there is going to be the potential to offload some rougher hill land into enviroforestry and see quite good prices achieved for it. So yeah, it's a really interesting area of development. And we do have a number of fund investors who have retained us to look out for suitable land because they are looking to buy more. So yeah, there's definitely potential there.
Is there anything else that you want to touch on?
Yeah, well, as you know, I've just had my head down and been filling in basic payment scheme forms. So topical to me, I would just say, if we do your forms for you and you haven't been in touch with us yet, please do give us a ring and we'll get the job underway. Otherwise, I know you've been busy, Meg, with the stewardship. Are there any things there that we need to be aware of, or any deadlines looming?
Yeah, so much like submitting an annual form for BPS, it's also crucial to submit an annual claim form for any countryside stewardship schemes lasting 5 or more years. If you'd like WBW to do this on your behalf, please will you get in touch with us so that we can submit it before the deadline of the 17th of May. And whilst we're on the topic of stewardship, it's probably worth noting that if you've secured a grant for roofing over an area in your farmyard, then please make sure you've got planning permission in place before starting those works.
And that's not just the obvious things like buildings, is it? That's if you've got a grant for tracks or covers for slurry stores or anything like that, you must have your permissions in place before you do the works.
Yeah, that's right. Sometimes it can be things that you don't necessarily think you need planning for, but if you ever run short, just give us a call and we can let you know. And it's just really important to make sure you've got that, because we'll need to send proof of planning to the Rural Payments Agency when it comes to claiming your money.
John and Megan from WBW. It's always nice to share some positive news, and I'm delighted to say that great strides are being taken at the auction mart in Skipton as COVID restrictions are gradually lifted. It's good news all round, but particularly if you like a cuppa and a bacon butty on market day. Here's Ted Ogden.
Trust you're enjoying this episode of the Farming Country podcast as I bring you an update of what's happening at the auction market. Very pleased to announce that the drop and go system that was in place under government regulations has now ended as of Monday the 12th of April. Very pleased to tell you that vendors are allowed to stay in market and represent their stock for sale. We're very keen to have vendors back on site on sale days, and that applies to all prime stock, store stock and breeding stock sales. You must still wear a face covering, please, when you're on the market site, and also maintain your social distancing. But the good news is that the cafe is open, albeit it's only for takeaway food, but there's tables outside. The office is also open, so you can go in there and collect paperwork, cheques and backs statements. We still prefer if you could please tell the clerk at the time of sale your luck penny that you want to leave the buyers, but there is the option to go to the office and sort that yourselves, or even hand out cash to the buyers personally if you want. But other than that, all sale days are operating as normal, trade is still fit and firing, and we're looking for all classes of stock. If you need to speak to one of the auctioneers, give us a ring on our walkie-talkies. We're available at all times, or you can speak to the market office 01756 792 375.
Ted Ogden with the latest from the ringside. If you're enjoying the Farm and Country podcast and would like to appear or become a podcast sponsor, please get in touch. All the details can be found at ccmauctions.com. That's all for today, but don't miss the next episode, available from Friday the 14th of May. From the whole team here, thanks for listening.